The training dummy exploded into fragments as Kira's fist connected, sending shrapnel spinning across the combat arena. She stood in the center of the black rubber floor, her cybernetic left arm still crackling with residual energy, while 23 Academy cadets stared from the observation deck above. The harsh white overhead lights cast sharp shadows across her scarred face. "Anyone else want to try?" Kira called out, rolling her shoulders. Her voice echoed off the curved walls lined with weapon racks. Devon, the human cadet with perfectly pressed uniform, leaned against the railing of the observation deck, his arms crossed. "That's the third dummy this week, Instructor. Property damage isn't exactly tactical brilliance." Several cadets laughed. Kira's jaw tightened, but she said nothing, instead walking toward the equipment locker at the arena's edge. Her boots squeaked on the rubber flooring. Zorthan, the insectoid commandant, with his bronze chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under. The lights descended the observation deck stairs, all four of his arms clasped behind his back. His compound eyes reflected the arena lights as he approached Kira. "Instructor Kira." "A word." She stopped, turning to face him. "Sir, your teaching methods are destructive." His mandibles clicked together as he spoke. "The Academy Board has received complaints from cadets, from their families, from other instructors." He gestured with two of his arms toward the observation deck, where Devon smirked down at them. "My methods work," Kira said flatly. "For whom?" Zorthan's head tilted, his antennae twitching. "Your combat scores are adequate, but your interpersonal evaluations are abysmal. The cadets fear you. Worse, they mock you." Kira's cybernetic arm clenched into a fist, servos whirring softly. "They need to learn how to fight, not how to be popular. They need to respect their instructor." Zorthan's voice dropped lower, his mandibles spreading slightly. "I'm assigning you a probationary period. 3 weeks. If your evaluations don't improve, you'll be reassigned to maintenance duty." The observation deck erupted in barely suppressed snickers. Devon didn't even try to hide his grin. Kira stared at Zorthan for a long moment, her green eyes hard. "Understood, sir." Zorthan turned and walked back toward the stairs, his chitinous legs clicking against the floor. "Class dismissed for today. Return tomorrow for live combat drills." The cadets filed out through the steel doors, their voices carrying in excited whispers. Devon paused at the exit, looking back at Kira. "Maintenance duty, that's perfect for you. Maybe you can learn to fix things instead of just breaking them." The door slid shut behind him with a hiss. Kira stood alone in the arena, surrounded by the scattered remains of training equipment, the white lights humming overhead. She walked to the weapon racks and began methodically checking each blade, each firearm, her movements precise and controlled. Her cybernetic fingers moved with practiced efficiency, despite the tremor in her jaw. The next morning in the corridors, harsh red emergency lighting strips glowed along the floor as Kira made her way toward the training arena. The exposed pipes overhead dripped condensation that pinged against the metal grating beneath her boots. She passed a group of cadets who immediately went silent, pressing themselves against the steel walls to let her pass. Liz, the quiet human cadet with close-cropped dark hair, nodded once as Kira walked by. The gesture was small, almost imperceptible, but Kira caught it. She didn't acknowledge it, just kept walking. The arena doors slid open. Inside, the cadets were already assembled on the observation deck, their uniforms crisp in the white light. Devon stood at the front, his arms crossed, watching Kira enter. "Today's exercise is simple," Kira announced, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "Live combat simulation. Pairs. Randomized. Assignments." She pulled out a data pad from her belt, her cybernetic fingers tapping the screen. "When I call your name, gear up and enter the arena." The blue holographic displays on the observation deck flickered to life, showing tactical readouts and combat parameters. The cadets shifted nervously. "First pair," Kira said. "Devon and Liz." Devon's smirk widened. Liz's expression didn't change, but her shoulders tensed slightly as she descended the stairs. They geared up at opposite ends of the arena, pulling on padded armor and selecting practice weapons from the racks. Devon chose a plasma rifle, spinning it once in his hands with practiced ease. Liz picked up a simple combat knife and a small shield. "Uneven match, don't you think?" Devon called across the arena to Kira. "But I guess we're learning about unfair advantages today." Several cadets laughed from the observation deck. Kira activated the simulation with a swipe of her datapad. The arena floor lit up with projected obstacles, barriers, cover points, environmental hazards, glowing red. "Begin." Devon moved immediately, firing 3 shots in rapid succession toward Liz's position. She dove behind a barrier, the plasma bolts scorching the rubber floor where she'd been standing. Smoke rose from the impact points. "Come on, Liz!" Devon shouted, circling around the barrier. "You can't hide forever." But Liz wasn't hiding. She was moving. Kira watched from the sidelines as Liz used the barriers for cover, advancing steadily, her movements economical and precise. Devon fired again, missing by inches as Liz rolled to new cover. "She's actually pretty good," someone muttered from the observation deck. Devon's expression tightened. He switched his rifle to rapid-fire mode and unleashed a barrage toward Liz's position. The bolts lit up the arena like a strobe, bathing everything in flashes of blue-white light. Liz burst from behind the barrier, shield raised, absorbing the impacts as she sprinted forward. Devon backpedaled, firing wildly, but she was too close. Her knife flashed out, striking his rifle's power cell with surgical precision. The weapon sparked and died in his hands. She swept his legs out from under him. He hit the ground hard, the breath whooshing from his lungs. Liz stood over him, knife at his throat. "Match over," Kira called out. The arena fell silent. Devon stared up at Liz, his face red, a mixture of embarrassment and anger twisting his features. Liz extended her hand to help him up. He slapped it away and scrambled to his feet on his own, ripping off his gear. "Lucky shot," he muttered, walking toward the exit. "It wasn't luck," Kira said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Devon stopped at the doors, his back stiff. "She read your movements, anticipated your tactics, used superior positioning to overcome your superior firepower. That's what I've been trying to teach all of you." Devon turned, his jaw clenched. "Maybe if you actually taught, instead of just destroying equipment and barking orders, we'd learn something." The observation deck went silent. Even the holographic displays seemed to dim in the tension. Kira took a step forward, her cybernetic arm hanging loose at her side. "You want to know why I'm hard on you? Why I push you? Why I don't coddle you with praise and participation awards?" "Because you're bitter?" Devon shot back. "Because you washed out of whatever unit you came from and ended up stuck here with us?" Kira's eyes narrowed, but her voice remained level. "Because in real combat, your enemy won't care about your feelings. They won't care if you're having a bad day. They won't give you a second chance if you make a mistake." She gestured toward the scorched floor, the broken training equipment scattered around the arena. "This is nothing. This is a playground. Out there?" She pointed toward the windows showing the star field beyond. "Out there, you die if you're not ready." "We know that," Devon said. "We're not idiots." "Then stop acting like them." Kira crossed her arms. "Stop mocking your instructor. Stop treating this like a game. Start learning before it's too late." Devon's face flushed darker. "You know what? The board's right. You don't belong here. You're just a broken soldier taking out your trauma on kids." The words hung in the air like smoke. Several cadets gasped. Liz's eyes widened. Kira didn't move, didn't blink. Her expression was carved from stone. "Get out," she said quietly. "Gladly." Devon stormed toward the exit. The doors slid open, and he disappeared into the corridor, his footsteps echoing away. The remaining cadets stood frozen on the observation deck, unsure whether to move or speak. Kira turned away from them, walking toward the equipment racks, her cybernetic arm trembling slightly. "Class dismissed," she said without looking back. "Get out." They left quickly, their whispers filling the corridors outside. Only Liz hesitated at the doors, glancing back at Kira's solitary figure in the arena. Then she too vanished into the hallway. Kira stood alone again, surrounded by the wreckage of another failed lesson, the white lights humming their indifferent song overhead. 3 days later, the emergency alarm shattered the academy's routine. The corridors erupted in flashing red lights as cadets and instructors scrambled toward their emergency stations. Kira was in the armory when the alert came through her comm unit. The narrow metallic room suddenly bathed in crimson. "All personnel, this is not a drill," Nakira's voice crackled over the speakers. The avian administrator's usually melodic tone sharp with urgency. Her beak-like mouth clipped the words precisely. "Hostile vessel detected in system. Raiders. Battle stations immediately." Kira grabbed a pulse rifle from the rack and sprinted into the corridor. Cadets ran past her in controlled chaos, their training kicking in despite their fear. She caught sight of Liz helping a younger cadet, who'd stumbled, pulling them to their feet without breaking stride. The training arena had been converted into a defensive position. Vrex, the massive reptilian senior combat trainer with purple-blue scales, stood at the entrance, his 7-foot frame blocking most of the doorway. His vertical pupils contracted as he saw Kira approach. "They've breached the outer hull," he hissed, his forked tongue flickering between his teeth. "3 sectors. Commandant wants all combat-rated personnel defending the cadet dormitories." "How many raiders?" Kira asked, checking her rifle's charge. "Unknown. At least 40. Vrex's muscular arms gripped a massive plasma cannon that would have required 2 humans to carry. "They're using some kind of scrambler. Our sensors can't get accurate counts." An explosion rocked the academy. The floor shook, and several cadets screamed. Dust rained from the ceiling pipes. "Move! Move!" Vrex roared, herding cadets toward the reinforced dormitory section. Kira fell, in beside him, her rifle raised, scanning the corridor intersections as they passed. They reached the dormitory entrance, a massive blast door that could seal off the entire sector. Cadets poured through while Vrex and Kira took defensive positions on either side. "Get inside!" Kira shouted at the stragglers. "Now!" Liz appeared, supporting a limping cadet with a bleeding leg. Behind them, down the corridor, shadows moved in the red emergency lighting. The raiders. Kira could see their silhouettes, hulking, armored, carrying heavy weapons that glowed with malicious energy. "Liz, run!" Kira raised her rifle and fired a burst down the corridor. The plasma bolts lit up the darkness, striking the lead raider in the chest. They stumbled but didn't fall, their armor absorbing the impact. Liz and the injured cadet dove through the blast door. Vrex fired his cannon, the recoil making even his massive frame shift backward. The explosion filled the corridor with fire and smoke, momentarily, obscuring the raiders. "Close it!" Vrex yelled. "Wait!" Kira looked back down the corridor, counting heads. Her mind raced through the cadet roster. "Devon's not here." "Then he's dead or hiding," Vrex growled. "We can't risk everyone for one cadet." "He's a student. Our responsibility." Kira stepped toward the corridor, toward the smoke and the approaching raiders. Vrex grabbed her shoulder with one scaled hand. "Don't be stupid, human. You go out there, you die." Kira looked at his hand, then at his eyes. "Yeah, probably." She pulled free and ran into the smoke. The corridor was hell. Burning debris littered the floor. The emergency lights flickered, casting everything in strobing red. Kira moved fast, her rifle up, clearing corners by instinct. Behind her, she heard Vrex cursing in his native language, but the blast door remained open. He was giving her time.
Devin! Devin! Where are you?
Metal scraping against metal. Kira spun and saw a storage closet, its door partially open. She approached carefully, rifle aimed. Devin was inside, crouched behind emergency supplies, his face pale and slick with sweat. His hands shook as he held a small plasma pistol he'd grabbed from somewhere. "Instructor," he whispered. His earlier arrogance was gone, replaced by raw terror. "Can you move?" Kira asked. He nodded. "Then move. Dormitory section. Now." Devin stumbled out of the closet. Behind them, the smoke was clearing, and the raiders were advancing. Kira could see them clearly now. 6 of them, heavily armored, with weapons that hummed with barely contained power. The lead raider raised something that looked like a shoulder-mounted missile launcher. "Run!" Kira shoved Devin ahead of her and opened fire. Her rifle barked, plasma bolts streaking down the corridor. 1 raider went down, armor finally breached. The others scattered for cover. Devin ran. Kira backpedaled, firing in controlled bursts, using the corridor's corners for cover. The raiders returned fire, their weapons tearing chunks out of the metal walls. Sparks showered down from severed pipes overhead. The blast door was 30 meters away. 20. 10. The lead raider fired the missile. Kira saw it coming. A streak of white-hot death screaming down the corridor straight at her. No time to dodge. No time to think. Her cybernetic arm came up. She didn't know why. Pure instinct. The arm's energy field activated, something she'd never been able to control before. A defense mechanism she didn't know existed. The missile struck the field and detonated. The explosion threw Kira backward through the blast door. She hit the floor hard, rolled, came up on her knees. Her cybernetic arm was smoking, sparking, barely functional. Her ears rang. Blood dripped from her nose, but she was alive. "Close it! Close it now!" Vrex roared. The blast door slammed shut with a final, definitive boom. The raiders' weapons hammered against it from the other side, but the doctor held. Kira collapsed onto her back, breathing hard, staring at the ceiling. Her vision swam. The ringing in her ears slowly faded, replaced by voices. Concerned voices. Scared voices. Devin's face appeared above her, his eyes wide. You saved me." "Doing my job," Kira managed. Micah, the crystalline medical officer with light refracting through her geometric body plates, knelt beside Kira. "Don't move, Instructor. Your arm is severely damaged." "I noticed," Kira said. The Academy's defensive systems finally kicked in. Through the thick walls, they could hear the automated turrets engaging the raiders. Explosions. Weapons fire. Then, gradually, silence. Nakira's voice came over the speakers, her avian features visible on the emergency displays mounted on the walls. Her golden eyes were sharp, her iridescent green and blue feathers ruffled with stress. "Raiders are retreating. All personnel maintain defensive positions until all clear is given." The cadets in the dormitory section were pressed against the walls, some crying, others staring in shock. Liz moved among them, checking for injuries, offering quiet reassurance. Devin still stood over Kira, his face a mask of confusion and something that might have been shame. "Why did you come back for me? After everything I said?" Kira sat up slowly, cradling her damaged cybernetic arm. "Because you're my student. That's what instructors do." "I called you broken," Devin said quietly. "I said you didn't belong here." "Maybe I am broken." Kira looked at her sparking arm. "Maybe I don't belong. But that doesn't change my responsibility to you. To all of you." Vrex approached, his massive frame casting a shadow over them both. His forked tongue flickered as he studied Kira. "That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen a human do." "Thanks," Kira said. It was also the bravest. Vrex extended a scaled hand. You saved the cadet. You held the line. Kira took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. Her legs were unsteady, but she stayed upright. The cadets were watching her now. All of them. Their expressions had changed. The mockery was gone. The dismissive sneers were gone. In their place was something Kira hadn't seen before. Respect. The all-clear sounded 3 hours later. The raiders had fled the system, their attack repelled by the Academy's automated defenses. Damage assessment teams fanned out through the corridors, cataloging the destruction. The Academy had survived, but barely. Kira sat in the medical bay while Micah worked on her cybernetic arm. The crystalline medical officer's body plates shifted and refracted light as she manipulated delicate instruments, accessing the arm's damaged systems. You triggered a defense protocol I didn't know existed, Micah said, her voice emanating from somewhere within her geometric form. The arm detected the incoming missile and activated a kinetic absorption field. It saved your life, but destroyed several key components. Can you fix it? Kira asked. Eventually. For now, you'll have limited functionality. The medical bay doors opened. Zorthan entered, his bronze chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the bright white medical lights. All 4 of his arms were clasped in front of him, his compound eyes fixed on Kira. Commandant, Kira said, starting to stand. Stay seated, Instructor. Zorthan approached, his mandibles clicking softly. I've reviewed the security footage from the attack, and I've spoken with several cadets, including Devon. Kira said nothing. You violated protocol, Zorthan continued. You endangered yourself unnecessarily. You should have sealed the blast door and accepted the loss. Yes, sir. You're also the reason we have 0 cadet casualties. Zorthan's head tilted slightly. The board called an emergency meeting. They wanted to discuss your probation, your teaching methods, your future at this academy. Kira's jaw tightened. And I told them they were idiots. Zorthan's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. Your probation is rescinded, effective immediately. Kira blinked. Sir? You were right, Instructor. Combat isn't about being liked. It's about survival. You prepared these cadets for the reality of violence in ways I failed to appreciate. Zorthan gestured with 2 arms toward the door. Devon submitted a petition signed by every cadet in your class. They're requesting you continue as their primary combat instructor. Kira stared. Every cadet? Every single one, including Devon, who wrote a rather lengthy apology for his behavior. Zorthan's antennae twitched. It seems nearly dying gives people clarity. Micah finished her work on the cybernetic arm and stepped back, her geometric plates shifting with satisfaction. The temporary repairs are complete. Full restoration will take several weeks. Kira flexed her cybernetic fingers. They responded sluggishly, but functioned. Thank you, Micah. Zorthan turned toward the door, then paused. The cadets also requested something else. They want you to teach them how you held off 6 raiders in that corridor. They called it the most impressive defensive action they'd ever seen. It was desperation, not skill, Kira said. Interesting, because Vrex called it textbook tactical excellence under impossible odds. Zorthan's compound eyes seemed to gleam. Perhaps you could teach a class on desperate textbook excellence. I suspect the cadets would benefit. He left before Kira could respond. She sat alone in the medical bay, her damaged arm resting in her lap, processing everything. The respect in the cadet's eyes, the petition, Devon's apology, the board backing down. It felt wrong somehow, like she hadn't earned it. All she'd done was her job. But maybe that was the point. The next morning, Kira stood in the training arena. The black rubber floor had been repaired. The destroyed training dummies had been replaced. The harsh, white overhead lights hummed their familiar song. The cadets filed in, taking their positions on the observation deck. They were different now, quieter, more focused. They'd seen real violence, felt real fear, and survived. Devon was among them, standing near the front. He met Kira's eyes and nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement and something that might have been gratitude. Liz stood beside him, her quiet presence unchanged but somehow more visible now. Today, Kira announced, we're going to talk about defensive tactics in confined spaces, how to hold a position when outnumbered, how to buy time for others to reach safety. She paused. How to make impossible choices under fire. The cadets leaned forward, actually listening. Kira activated a holographic display, showing the corridor where she'd held off the raiders. The tactical readouts appeared in blue light, mapping positions, firing angles, cover points. This wasn't heroic, she said. This was calculated. Every shot had a purpose. Every movement bought seconds. Seconds that saved Devon's life. Seconds that gave Rex time to position for a counterattack. Seconds that mattered. For the next 2 hours, she broke down the engagement, explaining her thinking, her tactical decisions, her mistakes. The cadets absorbed every word, taking notes, asking questions that showed they were actually thinking about combat as a discipline, not a performance. When the class ended, they didn't rush for the exits. They lingered, discussing tactics among themselves, debating alternative approaches. Devon approached Kira as the others filed out. Instructor, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why do you push us so hard? And please don't say it's because combat is hard. I get that now. But there's something else, isn't there? Kira considered the question. She looked at her cybernetic arm, at the scars on her knuckles, at the reminder of battles she'd survived, and comrades who hadn't. I had an instructor once, she said quietly. When I was your age, he was tough, demanding, never satisfied. I hated him. She met Devon's eyes. He died saving my unit during my first real deployment, threw himself on a grenade meant for us. And in that moment, I understood every harsh word, every brutal training session, every time he pushed us past our limits. He was preparing us to survive without him. Devon was quiet for a long moment. What was his name? Sergeant Corrin. Best instructor I ever had. Kira managed a small smile. Probably the only reason I'm still alive. Then we're lucky to have you, Devon said. He extended his hand. I'm sorry for what I said. All of it. You're not broken. You're the only one actually trying to keep us alive. Kira shook his hand. You're not an idiot. You're just young. There's still hope for you. Devon actually laughed. Was that a joke, instructor? Don't push your luck, cadet. He left, still smiling. Kira stood in the empty arena, surrounded by the tools of combat training, the lights humming overhead. For the first time in months, the space didn't feel hostile. It felt right. Her comm unit chimed. A message from Nakira, the avian administrator. Her iridescent feathered image appeared on the small screen, golden eyes bright. Instructor Kira, the board has approved funding for new training equipment. They're also requesting you develop an advanced combat curriculum for senior cadets. Please submit your proposal by week's end. Kira stared at the message. The board wanted her input. They were actually listening. She typed a response. Understood. Proposal incoming. As she left the arena, she passed Liz in the corridor. The quiet cadet nodded again, that same small gesture of acknowledgement. Thank you, Liz said, for showing us what real strength looks like. Kira paused. You already had it. You just needed permission to use it. Still, thank you. Kira continued down the corridor, her boots echoing off the metal grating. Red emergency lights now switched back to standard white. The Pi-3 Academy had been damaged, but not broken. The cadets had been scared, but not defeated. And Kira, despite everything, despite the doubts and the mockery and the board's threats, was exactly where she needed to be. Teaching, protecting, preparing the next generation for the reality that waited beyond these walls. Sergeant Corrin would have approved. The Academy let them target her, let them mock and dismiss and underestimate, let them think she was just broken machinery that needed replacing. But when death came knocking, when raiders breached the halls and real violence shattered their safe little world, Kira was the one who stood in the gap, the one who ran toward danger, the one who proved that being hard isn't the same as being broken. And maybe, just maybe, the cadets finally understood the difference. In the commandant's office, Zorthan stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows showing the star field beyond, his 4 arms clasped behind his bronze chitinous back. Vrex stood beside him, the massive reptilian's purple-blue scales reflecting the purple-blue ambient lighting. "She's a hell of an instructor," Vrex said, his forked tongue flickering, "even if her methods are unconventional." Unconventional saved lives today. Zorthan's compound eyes watched the distant stars. The board will learn, eventually. And if they don't, then I'll remind them that combat instructors aren't meant to be popular. They're meant to keep cadets alive. Zorthan's mandibles clicked. Kira understands that better than anyone. Below, in the training arena, the lights hummed their endless song. Equipment waited to be broken and rebuilt. Lessons waited to be learned and relearned. And Kira, the instructor they'd dismissed, the soldier they'd underestimated, stood ready to teach them all. One brutal, necessary lesson at a time.